Good evening, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for watching us on our monthly St. Albans Today show. And I should note a rescheduled show. Our apologies for anybody who tuned in last week and didn't find us. The snowstorm took us out, so thanks to all the guests for being accommodating. So again, our rescheduled February show just coming a few weeks before Vermont Town Meeting Day. And our guest, St. Albans Mayor Liz Gamache.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Mayor. Last time I'll be saying that to you on this show, at least for a while anyway.
Good to be here.
City Manager Dominic Cloud. Dominic.
Good evening.
Al Vogel, St. Albans Town Selectman.
Thank you.
And Mr. Bruce Cheeseman, Select Board Chairman in St. Albans Town. Thanks for coming on, folks. It's a live show, at least if you're watching us live. Love to get calls. Our number, I think I've got the right number, 527-6449. 527-6449. Just noting, we're just less than 3 weeks now from Vermont Town Meeting Day. And of the folks on the panel, Bruce, you're running for re-election.
Yes, I am.
Noting that in the town, running for a 2-year term and running against fellow Selectman Sam Smith, also Dick Day, and Alexander Buddy McWilliams. So a 4-way race for the 2-year term in the town. And also a contested race for the 3-year term, 2 former selectmen, David McWilliams and Stan Dukas, and Dick Day also on the ballot for the 3-year term. So those are the 2 contests in St. Albans Town. And we have 1 contest in the city, typically. No contest for mayor. It seems like we never get mayoral contests these days. But the 1 contest in St. Albans City, Curry Galloway and Asia Rock, the 2 candidates for city clerk treasurer. So speaking of which, Mayor Liz, about to just 20 days left, if my math is right. Kind of weird to be at the end of a pretty long tenure.
Yeah, it hasn't quite hit me yet. We had our last regular city council meeting on Monday night.
Yeah.
So that will definitely be the last regular meeting. But I said I'd bet a quarter that we might end up with a special meeting on some topic before all is said and done.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm completely done yet. Still working on a few things in the last few weeks.
So kind of strange to be at the end of the mayoral line.
It is. A mix of emotions around it. It's been, the most wonderful experience of my life is raising my family and with my husband Ted. But this is right in line with one of the top experiences of my life. To be able to serve as the mayor of a community like St. Albans, where we've been able to pull together and get some really great stuff done, has been a tremendous honor for me. So I will miss it, and I'll still be around.
Good. Dominic, what do you think? Mayor Liz, I guess you can point to a couple things going on in the city the last 6-8 years or so. What do you think? You think the mayor's leaving the city in pretty good shape?
Absolutely. Quite a legacy.
You're not going anywhere.
It's not entirely up to me, but I don't plan to. No. She's had a great run. We've had a great run, and we're not done yet. We've got a few more projects to tick off, we're more disappointed, I think, than it's not quite so mixed for us. It feels like it's the end of an era, we have a new incoming mayor, and
who knows his way around town, I think, Mr. Tim Smith.
Yeah, he's no stranger to the city, and with a little bit of time after it's sunken in that Liz is leaving, it feels like it might be time for to turn the page and try some new take on things. So
yeah, I should note on the city council, no contest on the council, but the 2 incumbents, Kate Laddison in Ward 5, Chad Spooner in Ward 6, coming back running unopposed for re-election.
That's right.
2 folks who also know the city pretty well, I would say. Huh?
Yeah, great councilors.
Mayor Liz, I'm 6 or 8 years. I'm
6.
6 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to give you 2 more. 6 years. That's a pretty good run.
Yeah.
Again, we may have talked about this last show. Again, there are a lot of things you can point to. Obviously, the revitalization. I've been hanging around here for over 4 decades, and I remember hearing downtown revitalization from year 1. And not to say there weren't some good things happening some years ago. Obviously, laying the groundwork for what you've done, but again, that's got to come right to mind. You got a pretty visible revitalization initiatives you can look at.
Yeah, well, it's been tremendous to see things happen literally before our eyes over the course of the last 5 years, essentially, as we've seen the construction projects take effect from the facade improvements downtown and East Hardware, the hotel, the artist in residence building that could have that was headed for a fate that wasn't so.
Yeah, I
good.
visited that in Enosburg Falls. Of course, it was in downtown Enosburg Falls for a while.
The fountain, the support of Rotary and the community to support refurnishing the fountain. When it comes down to it, those are all significant things that you can see. But what I'm really most appreciative of and proud of is the spirit of folks coming together to dare to hope, to dare to dream that we can do things a little differently and take care of ourselves, our neighbors, our community. It's not that we don't have problems, we always will, but we're better when we're together and when we can support one another. So I'll tell you, one of the best days that I had was the day that the fountain was turned back on. We had a ceremony for that. And on the one hand, I heard from a young girl who was probably 4 or 5 years old who was expressing how much it meant to her to see, maybe she's a little bit older, she knew that the fountain had been turned off, it was turned back on, it meant a lot to her, she loved St. Albans. And then a little bit later, a woman who was in her 90s talking about when she was a young girl that age, how she used to come to visit the fountain, and it's been a part of her life in St. Albans, and this symbolism of taking care of what matters to us, having civic pride, that means an awful lot. So when people say they're proud of their community, that makes me really happy.
And again, we've got a major item on the ballot. We'll get into that a little later. I want to check over to the town. Bruce, it sounds like you've been talking about, you think 2018 could be a very good year for St. Albans town?
Yes. We're in hopes. I mean...
in fact, let me stop. Let's just get one thing out of the way. I know there was some talk that we might be able to talk about this issue tonight. Water, wastewater, have we got any tentative agreement on the table, or not quite there, or not there? Or
well, I guess it's no secret that we have a draft agreement.
So you got a draft agreement?
Yeah. The contents of the agreement I would not like to talk about, but I can't talk about. But we have a draft agreement that's before the board. It's been, each member of the board has had a chance to take a look at it and comment and make corrections or add or subtract anything that they would. We had a meeting last night. It was a I think it was a really good meeting. We got a lot out of it. We went through the draft and we had requested changes and made some corrections, and we should have that in our hands soon we want to run it by our attorneys one time before we call Dominic up for another meeting to sit down and look at it.
Now, what do you think? How's the draft agreement looking to you at this point?
On a personal level, not speaking for the board, I think that our meeting last night, I agree with Bruce, our meeting last night was very productive. It also brought us, I think, as a group of 5 to much closer unanimity. So in that level, I'm very supportive and happy.
Yeah, Dominic, you spent just a little time on this issue, I know. But what do you think? Are we actually talking a possible agreement here? Could this actually happen?
Yeah, I think it could actually happen. Have
you been down this road before? Have you not been this? Is this I think the closest you've been to something concrete, or?
I think it's a very similar place that we've been before.
Yeah.
It's a different type of arrangement, what we're considering, than what we've done in the past, and it brings forth different concerns and dynamics. We haven't had a lot of dialogue since the negotiating team last met a couple of weeks ago, so it's hard for me to react to it. I'm eager to hear the results of their meeting last night, and can we get a deal? Absolutely. Will we? It's yet to be done, yet to be decided.
Liz, realizing your days in office are numbered, this deal would go, obviously the council would have to approve this on the city side. It would not go to a vote of city residents, would it, or am I wrong about that?
Well, you know me, I always like to take things a step at a time, but I think the context of the proposal and the negotiation would be a city council vote. It would not go out to...
Any hopes that you can get this done before you leave office?
I'm the eternal optimist. You know that about me.
Anyway, Bruce, I believe you said, in the town though, haven't you talked about a town, you would bring this to voters in the town, or am I wrong about that?
Well, you know, there's those that want to bring it before the voters,
Yeah.
and there are those that think that the select board could make the decision.
Yeah.
I myself, I want to educate the people of the town a little bit more on it before I put my 100% behind it. I don't think anybody has worked any harder at bringing this thing to want to have this done than Dominic, myself, Sam Smith, and the mayor, and we'd all like to see it happen. But I'm not real comfortable with just going ahead and accepting it without holding some public meetings on it, or at least getting some idea of how the voters feel.
Right, so you got to wait. If it did go to a vote, are we talking November? Would that be the logical time with a good turnout, or maybe before then, or who knows?
It would be before then, but you know, I've talked to a couple of people just recently that have called me and said that, geez, Bruce, you know, if this thing was to go to a vote, I feel quite certain, they felt quite certain, that we'd get 80% of the voters in the town for it.
Really?
But we got a couple of things we got to work out.
Hal, are you that optimistic? Do you see 80% approval for this at this point?
Put it this way, I see a probability of it passing by the voters.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the 80%, but I do think that the voters really want to get this behind us. It's been going on for 150 years or something. It's about time that we buried the past and move forward.
And Dominic, I suspect, I realize you don't have much else going on. I'm kidding. It'd be I would think you'd be very happy to resolve this issue that's been, again, hanging over the city and town forever, it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anybody who's worked on it sees the potential and sees what it means for the two communities to come together. You know, this is really the one thing that we've struggled with. Everything else we've figured out a way to work together. And, you know, the reality is it's not going away. And I think that's why it's incumbent upon us to try to find a deal, because we've tried to kick that can away. It just keeps coming back. No solution is perfect, but until there's ability to provide water and wastewater in the town of St. Albans, people aren't going to be satisfied, because that's where our growth potential is.
And speaking of just wastewater, the big project at the wastewater plant, is that underway?
It's not quite underway yet.
But later, in a few months, this spring or summer?
I think I actually heard fall was the last timeline.
Oh, really?
And I'm not sure why that's the preferred option, but I think it might have to do with managing the time of year, managing the flows coming into the plant. It's about a 2-year construction schedule.
Big project, 19 million project or so? Big project.
18, yeah.
18.
Yeah.
And again, this will in part reduce the phosphorus going into the lake from the plant. I'm sure it's a pretty old plant, though. This plant needs some work.
Yeah, I mean, the phosphorus piece, it's a couple million.
Yeah.
You know, the heart of the project is useful life issues. We have plenty of capacity. We're not creating more capacity. We're just dealing with the belts and the pumps, and you know, there isn't a perfect analogy for a wastewater plant, because it's a unique, you know, a house analogy doesn't really work, a car analogy doesn't really work, maybe a boat, but we're just basically taking care of the asset with this project.
Well, you could use a human being as an analogy. New heart, new hips. New
I know, but human beings, they have a expiration date.
So does a plant.
Not really. That's my point. You know, like a plant needs to be taken care of, but you know.
But with modern science, we're going to be going on for 180 years.
That's what Tony Pomerleau said.
Right.
Well, talk about Vermont losing one of its top people.
Yeah.
What a life, though. 100 years.
100 years. It's a good run.
That's a pretty good run. Bruce, obviously the select board approved the budget. That was a unanimous vote on all the articles on the warning.
Yes,
Any
it was.
dissenters to any of those articles?
Pardon me?
Any dissenters on
No.
the select board?
No,
Yeah.
it was pretty smooth.
So again, budget a little over $4.5 million. I think that's a fair budget for the town.
I do.
Yeah. Anything, again, not too many articles. Are this fewer articles than I'm used to in the town, or no, just six?
I think there is. It isn't really a big year. I mean, there's not. We haven't. That's what we've got. That's what we came up with
Yeah.
for this year.
Percentage increase in the budget is what?
Percentage.
Increase. I
don't think we're going to have an increase in the budget this year.
Yeah.
I mean the.
There's
It's taxation
Pardon me. And the taxes.
in the taxes. We don't have an increase in the tax rate.
on the tax
rate.
side.
Yeah.
But the town budget itself is up, I think, by 8%.
The town budget is up by 8% over last year, but there's plenty of reasons for it. I mean,
And I see in Article 3, will voters authorize the board to use up to $300,000 of prior year general fund balance to reduce taxes, so that would knock it down some too if that's approved, which I can't imagine it wouldn't be.
right.
Dominic, Liz, on city budget, what's the lowdown on that? How, a little over what, $8 million? Comfortable with that spending plan?
Includes a couple of increases due to a couple of things, which are the new street crimes unit, which
Oh, right.
is already underway, but with voter approval, we'll be able to continue that work. It started a few weeks ago, and we're seeing some good results with 2 individuals who are able to focus on street crimes, drug-related crimes. So that's a part of the budget. And you'll recall that our sidewalk improvement plan is a multi-year plan, so also we continue on that path over the course of the upcoming
Was
fiscal
there
year.
much discussion on the council about the street crimes unit? Seems like there's a fair amount of support for it. I've run into some people who don't think it's a good idea. Was all the council pretty much for that?
Yeah, the vote, well, the support of the budget, which is
Okay,
what
part of the
supports
budget.
the addition of that.
Yeah.
And I'd say that we've had a variety of types of feedback on that, but I've had much more support for it than questioning it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, I think the benefits to have the focus means that we'll have more targeted law enforcement practices. It'll be effective, and we're a small community. We want to feel safe. We want to feel good when we're walking in our neighborhoods, and this will help to do that. And just seeing the reactions that people are already experiencing this, seeing that some of the issues that they've been dealing with within their neighborhoods, their streets, are being taken care of.
Police department fully staffed at this point, or closer to?
It's close. The you're always kind of one goes out and one comes in. You know, in an organization of now 26 people. So I kind of lose track of where we're at. And we just increased it by 2. So we've got some new hires coming on to fill that. But I'm not sure where we are exactly on the day-to-day.
But you're certainly, I think early in your tenure, it just seemed like the department would typically be losing some officers to better paying departments, and it seems like you close the gap more. Better pay, that's not as much of an issue, at least these days, or hardly an issue?
The dynamic has certainly changed.
Yeah.
Back then we were a feeder program for Chittenden County and the state police. Now it's actually the opposite. Many of the officers that we're recruiting are coming out of Chittenden County typically because they want to do real police work and not just bust shoplifters. So
Really? Interesting.
that's part of the recruitment strategy and part of the brand is part of that. But we've got a great compensation plan. We've got a great incentive program. So the challenges that we're having are the same that every department in the state is having. It's a great time to be a police officer because there's so much opportunity and you can have such an impact. But it's also a tough time, with everything that's going on in the country and the conversation about what's the appropriate role of law enforcement within community policing. You know, what's our role within the opiate epidemic? You know, you got to be wired in the right way to want that job.
Yep, I hear you.
Let me just
add that, that was a good portion of our increase too, because we partnered on that with the city. We paid 50% of the cost of the new unit, and
the select board, that seemed like a good initiative to the board.
I did. I think the city police is doing a great job, and you know, they need all the support from us that they can get. And you know, last thing we want to do is work as hard as we do to make this a great place to raise kids and bring families and jobs together and everything. Last thing we want to be known is as the you know, drug haven of the state. We don't want that. Yeah. We don't need that. And I think Chief Taylor's doing a good job. He and his people of fighting that portion of the crime. He's doing a real good job. And I'm more than happy to support him in his efforts.
And city police coverage in the town, which has been going on for a number of years, you feel that's going well?
They're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Just want to add to what the mayor said in terms of the police effort to make these arrests for large drugs moving in. Two things. I was amazed by how drugs have permeated the society of all levels. And I'm amazed at some of the people that I know whose children or grandchildren are now affected by drugs. So that to me is less dangerous in terms of robbing somebody on Main Street, but it is a terrible burden for a family to have to cope with. The second thing which I learned is that when they make these major hauls, the emergency room skyrockets because the drugs are off the street now, and the people still have their addiction problem or the withdrawal symptoms because the drugs aren't available. And that to me is now our weakest point. I've talked to people in the hospital and to Rise Vermont and to the drug facility down South Main Street. And we've just got to make sure that there's money for them to be able to address these people that are going to hurt every time we make a big bust and those streets are up, drugs are off the road. When we see them in the emergency room, to quickly respond to get them into treatment.
I would say it's interesting too to think about the multi-pronged approach that a society takes to deal with the issues that come with addiction. So from prevention to treatment, recovery, and enforcement, I think in the city we've been able to really play an effective role in supporting enforcement, but then also including other community partners in the police department's work as they assess what's happening in the community and they connect, collaborate more with the prevention and treatment folks than ever before. And then I also think, too, about our recreation programs and how important it is to have activities, municipal recreation programs that help to provide positive ways to blow off steam and have fun in the community. You know, from the recreation department programs, TARDAC, the opportunities we have down at the lake. So from prevention to enforcement, there are different places that we're able to use our municipal influence to make a difference.
Just want to mention again our numbers. Feel free to check in, folks. 527-6449 is our number on St. Albans Today. In addition to the municipal budget, which we touched on, school budget, a major item before city voters, another TIF initiative, tax increment financing initiative, kind of a multi-pronged project. Liz and or Dominic, you want to give us a lowdown on that?
Sure. You wanna take it?
Sure.
Number of parts to this one, Dominic.
So the first ball that gets put in play is a new police station.
I think last time you were on the show, we talked about that. You definitely made it clear that something had to give with the current police department headquarters.
Yeah, I mean, it's an embarrassment. It doesn't reflect our civic pride. It hurts our recruiting efforts. It's tiny. It's
in a floodplain.
In a floodplain, 3,000 square feet. It just doesn't reflect the department that we are today. And we've been working on it for 4 or 5 years now, trying to find the right solution. And we knew it was going to cost some money, but we were also looking for a way to leverage that expense into a larger redevelopment project. And that's how we've landed here. So the first ball is that we would purchase the CCV building. A developer would purchase it and lease it to the police department, which creates the opportunity for CCV to come downtown, much like we did with the state office building earlier. CCV hasn't inked a deal, but we've gotten far enough along that they're comfortable with us talking about them as our intended tenant, using their logo. We're at a similar place with Northwestern Medical Center, and those two institutional tenants would create the ballast for a 25,000 square foot building on Main Street with retail on the first floor for 1,000.
And we're talking again North Main Street, almost right across, just
right across
corner
from
of
City
North
Hall.
Main and Congress, pretty much, right?
Yep, yep. On the first floor, there'd be parking underneath. The second two pieces of the project are related to housing. There's an affordable housing project that isn't living up to all of its potential on the back part of that parcel. And once we acquire all that land, we can use some of the leftover land to build market rate units. So it'd be 20 and 20 of each. The city would own the parking in between and would manage the parking in between for those projects and the public, much like we did with the parking garage.
We're talking surface parking here?
Surface parking.
Okay.
Yeah, surface parking, and then all the new buildings will have parking underneath. It's a $20 million project.
Really?
It's a $2.5 million TIF vote, and the estimated value on the back end is $9.5 million.
Interesting. So, and again, is a TIF deadline, is that getting, we've talked about that before, is that deadline getting close? Do you have to do whatever TIF initiatives are going to get done, have to be done by a certain time?
Initially a 5-year deadline,
got
and then it
extended?
was extended to 10.
It's now 10.
No, really. Had it not been extended, we wouldn't be talking about this particular project? Or?
I think we're right on the cusp.
You might have just gotten in under it.
Yeah, we might have run the hurry up offense if the timeline hadn't gotten extended. So, we've probably got about 5 years left in which we could do meaningful TIF projects, but the TIF is beginning to wind down a little bit.
St. Albans, I got to think a number of communities in Vermont have been doing some TIF projects. Is St. Albans kind of seen as the top star with TIF? I would guess.
I travel throughout the state, and I actually, right on my phone, I have a voicemail from a community member from another Vermont with a downtown that wants to come up and find out how we did what we did. We have really, I think, optimized what we could do with TIF, and some examples of that include the multi-prong approach that we have to our projects. So the downtown core, where we were able to pull together the pieces that involved a state office building, a garage, and then a hotel, is a great example. And as a designer and architect of these plans, I am really appreciative and grateful for what Don brings to the table to see possibilities. Not everything that we envision works, so he keeps working it and is able to find great collaborations and partnerships that really bring projects together that are unique and would be very difficult to pull off in a piecemeal basis. That's one of the reasons why I think this current one that we're talking about is so important and exciting. It solves issues that we have with facilities, the police department, public safety building that is not adequate, but then it also creates this tremendous opportunity to hit economic development by offering retail spaces downtown and then bringing employees. If it's CCV and NMC, what a great way to populate the downtown with more employees. And then having the housing component on it helps to make our community more vibrant, more people in our downtown area throughout the day and into the evening. And that makes us feel better and safer. And so it's
where did this come from? Where did the CCV police department kind of nexus thing come from? Is this your brainstorm, Dominic? I hadn't heard a thing. We had talked about police. I'd always mentioned the Fonda Solo site. You said that would be a possibility in Liz, but I hadn't heard a thing about the CCV connection.
Well, that's good. That's good, surprising in some ways. We've been looking at it for a while.
Yeah.
it fires on all cylinders for us. It's rare that you can find a facility built for one purpose that works so well for another.
Really? So that'll be a good PD headquarters.
Yeah.
And what about fire department personnel? Are they staying put, or?
They're staying put for now. We're in some discussions with the town of St. Albans about regionalizing that service. We don't have enough information yet to figure out what's right for the fire department for their next move.
But they're staying put at the moment, not part of this project.
We're not building new space for them. The 2 full-time building inspectors would move with the police department. The apparatus would stay in its current location. To the extent that our fire planning points towards a new facility at the old CCV, there's plenty of space there, which is another reason why it's such a good site.
Interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the questions I'm asked is, what are the elements that go into making all this possible? And I think part of it is readiness. You have to be ready for the opportunities when they arise. Some of them you can be proactive and try to create, and then others will come to you, and being ready for that is so important. So having talented staff in place that know how to work these types of deals is critical. And we have our in-house staff, and we rely on consultants that are able to help fill in where we need that additional expertise. And having our financial house in order is also a really important piece of that. And that's something that over the last decade has been some tough work to reorganize, restructure. And we just had the auditors at the city council meeting on Monday. It's quite an accomplishment over the years to build up the strength of our financials in the city, and that's also positioned us to be ready to make some of these changes.
Bruce, we've talked before, again, possible merger down the road between city and town fire departments.
Yeah.
Still optimistic that will happen at some point?
We are, but there's some issues that we still got to work out.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. There's some logistics that still have to be worked out, but the possibilities are definitely there.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Certainly plenty of things going on in the town. But a new town hall, will we see maybe some forward movement on that in 2018?
Sure, that's why Al's here tonight.
Al, you want
He's
to give
gonna
us
explain that to us.
so
He's
they've
on the
got
committee.
2 potential sites for a new
Right.
town hall complex, whatever?
Just for the public's information, we started off with Anna, the town clerk, identifying that we had some 22 parcels of land for sale in the town.
Really?
And then we had a committee of 4 go out and look at each parcel, evaluate them, and then come back with a rubric of how they prioritize them. And then individually we went out to the top 5. And then from that voted and came up with 2 sites that we then hired an engineer to look at the property to see what the cost would be to develop those 2 properties, to try to get a handle on the value of each one and construction costs. And so we're at that point now. We've had the report. Now we're going to come back and discuss that report and try to make a recommendation to the select board to proceed. If we proceed, then one, we have to acquire the land. And probably the more difficult is to then start planning this town hall and what it should look like, what people are willing to pay for it, and how it becomes a community center.
Assuming voters, when they get this initiative, approve it, pretty much we're talking a new town hall. Renovating the current town hall is not really an option at this point, or
we did do a study on the old town hall, and it would cost about $2.5 million to renovate it.
Yeah.
But they said, the engineer said, it would only have a lifespan of about 10 years, mainly because of the vault and the space if the town grows at its predicted rate. On the same hand, if you took that $2.2 or $2.5 million and put it into a new building, that building would have a life potential of 50 years. So it's your annual cost depreciation, which is the bigger issue.
So cost-benefit ratio kind of looks like just really pointing towards a new building, Bruce?
It is, definitely. And one of the problems that we'd have if we were to renovate the old building is that we just don't have any land there.
Yeah.
I mean, as the town grows and everything, you can put the $2.2 million into the building, but the lot doesn't increase. You still have the same size lot. You still have a parking problem. We've got a relatively old mound system that's down there that is probably going to be good for, I don't know, hopefully for another 5 or 6 years.
Right.
But it just doesn't prove cost worthy to put the money into that building. And besides that, the population, that, we want to put the town office where the people are.
And again, speaking of which, the 2 sites you can talk, that's come out, right? The 2 sites, one on what, Sam Smith-owned property?
Ingleside property, right.
Ingleside, not far from Exit 19. And the second site being?
On the corner of Route 36 and Fisher Pond Road.
Northwestern, not far from Northwestern Counseling and Support. Are there a little
right,
bit?
Yes.
What, a little bit north of there, I guess, if I got my right direction?
They would be north, right.
So those are the two so Noah, those are the 2 sites under consideration.
Right.
Others have been ruled out at this point?
Yes, I assume that we'll come to an agreement with one of those 2 landowners.
And again, just in terms of population, whatever, that makes sense to you.
It does.
You're running into probably some folks who are saying, don't leave the Bay, we love the Bay.
Oh yeah, you've got the people that live down in the Bay that really hate to see that organization leave, but unfortunately I think the time has come, and I think it's a smart move on our part.
When are we talking, again, this would go before voters at some point, when you have a solid proposal, presumably?
I would assume so.
Yeah, we're talking...
Certainly the allocation of the money to build.
Right.
Yeah. I think we were talking about the November timeframe.
Right.
So November
voters, yeah.
Sounds like the likeliest time for that.
Yep.
Interesting. Dominic, what's the key? Again, sounds like you have all kinds of things to be dealing with as you get into 2018. Any particular things? You're always kind of jumbling a number of things here. I guess anything stand out more than others? Sounds like you have always a lot of stuff on your plate around the city.
Well, ideally, we'll be launching our water and sewer agreement with St. Albans Town. Yeah. And of course, then the litigation would be resolved, so I'd have a lot of time on my hands. We're still looking at the Fonda site and trying to get some private development there. So that's the next thing that's coming.
Potential for city fire department, or not likely?
It's a big site. It's more than they could use.
Or I guess I should say, what about city public works and fire department?
Potentially, but fire would probably be, we'd keep the public safety link and have them co-locate on a site with police. We're also, taking a look at the city pool right now. We've got bids out for helping do an assessment of, much like the conversation that these guys were describing with the town hall, is we're nearing the end of our. There's some evidence we're nearing the end of our useful life of the pool. We need to confirm that and figure out what's the next move. And the other piece is Hardack. I think that's a really exciting merger that we're just scratching the potential of. Kelly Vian's just signed an agreement with LL Bean to do some programming based around Hardack.
Really?
And I think Liz was talking earlier about the importance of recreation for distinguishing the community's brand, and with the Hardack merger, there's just so much opportunity there. And that's another opportunity, I think, for the 2 communities to come together. Bruce and Sam and I are on one of the Hardack planning boards, and there's a lot of positive energy in that effort.
And is that a done deal? The Hardack City merger, is that done?
It's 95% done. It's fully negotiated and signed. We are en route to closing. We've had a couple of sort of super technical deed issues to straighten out, which I believe have all been straightened out. We just need to schedule it.
Are we going to see another skating hockey rink on Hardack? Liz?
Oh, I don't know, but here's what comes to mind recently that I'd love to mention around recreation in St. Albans is the Rise Vermont program.
Rise Vermont?
Yeah. So for folks who don't know, it was a pilot of Northwestern Medical Center that's just gone statewide and improves our community health and well-being by offering great support and programming for individuals, businesses, organizations, and I think it really underscores how important the role of the hospital is in bringing a community together. We've seen that at different points in our history with the hospital, but especially now, driving community engagement through health and wellness is exciting. So it was a fun week last week seeing some of the RISE events. I didn't get to participate in it, but heard about the event at City School where the governor joined in and participated with the kids in some of the fun activities.
Right. Bruce, there's a lot of bucks in the town's local option sales tax account. The 1% local option sales tax, well over $1 million at this point. Any plans to tap into that one of these days, months, years?
Well, there's some plans, but I'm not. I'm not at liberty to discuss those right now.
Anybody come to you and say, "Hey guys, you have all this money. Let's use it." Do you get those
Oh
comments?
yeah, we get that all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to spend it, but it's got to be spent right.
Yeah. Al, any thoughts on that?
No, just to let the people know that we're not going to do away with taxes.
Yeah.
We had a request that we spend all of it to eliminate the property tax. No, we have to look to the future, and money.
You couldn't do that if you You couldn't do that if you wanted, or could you?
I suppose you could.
You could.
It's not. I guess I thought
Not
it
very
was
good
specifically
financial planning.
earmarked for infrastructure projects, or.
Yeah, and
It is.
we have to look towards the future. We have to plan for this in terms of the HARDAC and the town. Our now multipath system is going to have a path that goes from Collins Purley to HARDAC. So it'll pick up, and it interconnects with city streets that'll all be joined through those streets. So we'll have another path to HARDAC along that route. And the hospital is very much interested in that because they've already put in the sidewalk from the corner of 36 up to the Northwest Counseling Service. Mm. So you can see, to Liz's point, the hospital's helping us market that, and we want it because it's a healthy thing and it joins us all together again. Yeah. And for children to go eventually from the city or the elementary school, city elementary school, or the town elementary school, up to the Collins Purley and over to HARDAC if they want, or any ways that they can get there, but they can get there off the streets. Mm-hmm. The thing that bothers me the most is watching people on Fisher Pond Road walking in the daytime. And I've won a couple of people at nighttime, hardly able to see them. Oh. And we've got to get them safely off the road. Yeah.
It's not only the kids, we can get the people from Gracebrook, the folks that live at the Hawk's Nest and stuff, get out and get exercising and enjoy this town and city that we have.
Bruce, Town Public Works Department on the lake in St. Albans Bay. Any plans at this point to try to get Town PW out of there?
Oh yeah, that fits right into the Infrastructure Committee program. You want to fill them in on that, Al? Or?
Sure. We've had a long debate. Initially, the idea was to put Public Works with the Town Hall. We still haven't totally resolved that, depending upon which property we use. But the committee now is leaning towards putting Public Works on some place which is less visible, out of the central to all parts of the town and city, but not on Fisher Pond Road. And you have them a little more space, given the fact that you need salt sedge and sand sheds and all the trucks and things you got to take care of, is to get that off, not to disturb the view of the town. So we're looking at alternative sites for that.
You think we may see some concrete movement on that in 2018 this year?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
No, we still haven't taken our property on
the Brigham Road property
off the board yet either. I mean, that's still a possibility of locating it there as well.
Again,
it's property that we've owned.
Yeah.
We've got, we've done all the perk testing. We did everything that we need to do to actually dig a hole and start a building down there. So it's a very good possibility that might still end up down there.
Again, there's still an entity. All you said in the past was an entity's town's under contract with an entity who has some plans for some of the Brigham Road property.
Yep.
That's still the case.
It's still the case, but
are you losing a little faith in that?
Oh no, not at all, not at all. That's steaming right along. I mean, we'll probably be seeing something positive on that by the end of this month. I think the end of February is the due date on that. No, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on that, and the organization that's interested in it is also willing to purchase the property and give us land back for DPW.
Dominic, when people talk to you on the street, what are the topics that come up? Any topics that get a lot more discussion than others? There's certainly plenty of things people could be, talking to you about off the cuff or not off the cuff.
Curbs on Smith Street has been lately on Front Porch Forum.
Really? Oh, really?
As we've done some of the reconstruction projects on the streets, we've added curbs, and for good reason, to help manage all the water runoff.
Yeah.
We haven't shrunk any streets. In many cases, we've widened them a little bit. But that particular turn off of Smith seems to be one that folks are having trouble navigating. So.
Interesting. Legislature's been doing their thing for a month and a half or so. Anything you'd like to see out of the legislature that would specifically benefit St. Albans City, or nothing specific, or hoping they won't hurt St. Albans City or whatever? Or I'm sure you pay some attention to Montpelier.
Yeah, I was down there.
Your old job, you probably paid a lot of attention, did you not?
I did.
League of Cities and Towns.
There isn't anything that it's of paramount concern. We're tracking some of the water quality efforts. I think we've had some backsliding, candidly, from the legislature on our commitment to water quality. Last year, the sentiment in the State House was we're all in, everybody needs to be in, and then we've had trouble implementing that vision as we've gotten to describe what all in looks like. The consensus seems to have evaporated, and that's a huge problem for St. Albans, given what we're looking at for water quality challenges.
Of course, the search's still on for some permanent funding sources. You hear just incredible price tags on what it would take to clean up Lake Champlain, not to mention Lake Carmi getting so much attention. And in fact, I guess a week from tomorrow, for folks watching us live, what Vermont Clean Water Day. Just read the dispatch from Lake Champlain Committee, so I think we'll see hopefully a good turnout in Montpelier next week on that front. But it's a tough issue, obviously.
It's a tough issue. One of the biggest challenges is, typically in Vermont, when we have a problem that we want to solve, we put a laser focus on it and we create a specific entity to get it done. Water quality responsibility is diffuse. A&R has a piece, 4 or 5 different agencies have a piece, but there isn't anybody who's accountable for it, and it has to compete against everything else in the governor's budget. So if we want to get it done, we need to put somebody in charge.
St. Albans Bay figures to get a lot of attention next summer with the marina. Looks like a go project.
The marina's good to go, and according to Chuck Lowe, in May, that's going to be the kickoff. But I agree with Dominic. We have a problem with water quality here, but the only time it's an issue that we got to deal with 24/7. It's not an issue that we're just going to deal with during the month of July and August when the water gets bad down in the bay. All the politicians show up, stand there, talk about all the great things they're going to do, walk away, and everything walks away with it. It seems like that's what happens. We got to get with the program down there, all throughout the state and Lake Champlain, and come up with a good program and start hitting this thing hard. I mean, it's kind of discouraging. The only time it's a true issue where we have everybody focusing in on it is during the month of July and August when we have bad water and the air gets a little thick down there and so forth. But it's not going to cure itself. It needs the attention.
Speaking of the Bay, did the skating rink ever make it at the Bay Park? I guess I checked it a few times and stuff.
Our public works director made some honest attempts to
I agree.
To build a skating rink down there.
Weather wasn't real cooperative.
Weather didn't cooperate with us.
Maybe next winter?
Yes.
Interesting. Al, again, that's water quality, of course, in your former longtime job as Colchester town manager. Geez, is it just a kind of a discouraging issue from kind of a
Well,
managerial point of view?
From my point of view, it's discouraging because we're not looking at it worldwide. This problem is worldwide, mainly because of the agricultural chemicals for phosphorus to grow up agriculture products. The Europeans, I'm on the Franklin County Clearwater Advisory Committee, and we are now the subject of UVM looking at us to see how we go about making decisions. Again, to try to address what Dom's talking about in terms of getting a unified system that will coordinate, but with authority to get things done within the county. And one of the concerns that I've always had is with the climate change and the world population explosion, and the climate change, including what's going to happen to the borders of the United States with the rising oceans. How is that going to? We know it's going to impact population and probably Vermont. With the changing weather, we know that's already impacted Vermont. And then we have to put all that together to make sure that what we're doing now is not going to be washed out by all these other changes. Europe's way far ahead of us. They're already rewriting their regulations to cope with the environmental changes, both population and the global warming. We've got to do that in Vermont. I know it may slow us down a little bit, but I can't see putting good money after bad. Processes or thoughts. So hopefully with UVM part of our study group, now we're looking at it the way we work, but also being a resource for information, that at least we can come up with something that we can offer the state as to what we need to do to move forward with the accountability section.
Anybody else want to jump in on that issue?
Sure. A lot of things come to mind. But one of the things that we have learned on a very local level in St. Albans is that if we can think beyond, 1 or 2 year election cycle, think ahead to what we need for our children as they grow up for the future, we've been able to come together and make some decisions that will leave positive legacy effects for the future. How can we take more of that approach when it comes to environmental issues, climate change, the water quality issues? This isn't getting better. No. It's getting worse. And it's not just about us today. It's about our children. It's about our grandchildren and the future they'll face. I'm really concerned about the challenges that our youth face with the environmental legacy that we're leaving for them, with the challenges to get post-secondary education. The cost of whether you're going to college or getting a training program is so expensive. The student loan debt. I think we need to take a different approach. We're just kicking the can down the road.
And speaking of water quality, MS4, that's the run. We're talking. Well, that sounds like a lot of bucks, a lot of work. Is that clear to you, Dominic? How that plays out, or how tackling that plays out?
Yeah. The permit's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You got 5 years to file your plans and 20 years to fix the streams.
What about funding? Of course, obviously jumps right to mind. We're talking many millions of dollars here.
Yeah, I think our cost is $10 million or so.
Wow. And are you in with the town on this? Are you folks in together or not?
Where it makes sense, we team up. We're a little bit different, situated a little bit differently, and candidly, this darn water sewer thing gets in the way of everything. And one of the problems with statewide support for clean water efforts is right now there's really only a dozen or so communities who are feeling the pinch because they've got acute clean water problems or they've been designated an MS4.
And are you St. Albans being one of them or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're caught in the net, and that means that there isn't the broad-based political support that you need to really solve the problem.
Well,
just to add to Liz's point, Generation Z is entering 12th grade.
Yeah.
So this is nothing we can put off. They're already here.
Yeah.
Federal Street Extension Project. Sorry if I'm using the old-fashioned name for it that I was dealing with decades ago around here. Again, the Catherine Federal Lake Street intersection will be getting some more work, or what have you got? I mean, I think that's worked pretty well, which I've told the mayor at least.
Yeah.
There'll be some more work there.
Eventually, we hope, if we can get some federal funding. Right now, there's no more work until there's any more money.
Okay.
And
again, I think it's an infinite improvement over. I used to dread dealing with that, and I think it works actually pretty well myself.
and we tackled the toughest part,
Yeah.
but it's $10 million to get to the next phase.
Really?
And we didn't get here without federal support. We can't finish it without federal support.
And the next phase would be?
Getting through the city.
Okay. Anyway, and Al, do you want to throw in anything on anything in the town? Any kind of big traffic issues in the town that you'd like to move on, or not?
We don't really have any big traffic issues in the town.
City's got its share.
The only traffic issues we have is during Bay Day or something like that down in the Bay.
Sidewalk issues are getting some more attention in the town?
They are. I'm hoping to see our finalized sidewalk plan here real soon. Hopefully real soon. But
Fisher Pond Road, I think, has problems.
Yeah.
And certainly at the rush hours. I know the RPC has one idea to how to fix it, and the select board has another idea how to fix it. But in any case, we've got to fix it one way or another to improve the delay time.
yeah.
I was convinced. I guess I was deluding myself. I get off exit 19 quite a bit, as do other folks, and on Mondays right at rush hour. I was thinking, why doesn't Agency of Transportation put in a dedicated right-hand turning lane to at least get, but I guess the traffic feeding in, the southbound traffic on I-89 feeding off there, I guess messes up. I was thinking that seemed like an obvious thing to me, but I guess the feed-in traffic from I-89 may be...
I think that's becoming a problem myself. I mean, getting off from 19, coming down the ramp. I mean, I was trying to get off there the other day. It was a week or two ago. And there was traffic lined up probably a quarter of a mile back from the exit ramp. Yeah. And I actually went down to 20 because I didn't want to sit in that traffic.
Really?
It's becoming a problem.
Yeah. That's right. Boy, Mayor, again, 20 days. Looking back on your long tenure as mayor, what's the most surprising? Anything jumping out as just something that was a totally surprising development or issue you had to deal with, or maybe there were a lot of them?
Well, we accomplished a lot during the last 5-6 years. Yeah. So many of the projects that we proposed, nearly all of them, we've been able to, pull off. So that's been wonderful. And then it's been fun hearing from people and working to solve problems. I will say it now. For most of my tenure as mayor, if you called my number at City Hall, it went directly to my cell phone. So it was not uncommon to get calls at 5 a.m. in the morning, sometimes if there was a noise issue, and I would pick up the phone and work on resolving it. I think my favorite call was when a call was forwarded to me when I was in Washington, D.C. about a rooster complaint. And we were able to, remotely work.
Probably should have gone to you about my squirrel problem. I had no idea.
My cell phone isn't connected right now, but I'll check my messages and get back to folks. But everything from, the little everyday issues to the big infrastructure improvements. Yeah. It's been fun. Again,
as it looks like, I hate to jinx it, believe me, but the wastewater issue sounds like there's some progress. But again, if you had to point to a disappointment, not getting that resolved, or you don't strike me as a big disappointment.
Yeah. So here's what the positive
down to less than a minute,
that I would focus on between the city and the town. That when we look at where our common interests lie, we can do a lot of really great stuff together. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of the last several years, is that we've found opportunities, recreation, public safety, police, fire, to work together successfully. And it's because we're thinking about what our common interests are and how we can do more together. When we can work together and do more than we could on our own, that's a good thing. I like to say when 1 + 1 can equal 3 instead of 2, it might be bad math, but that's what we should aim for.
And Bruce, we're just about out of time, but you would certainly second those comments.
I sure would. I sure would. And I want to tell the mayor it's been a pleasure working with you.
Likewise.
And I've enjoyed it, but something tells me we haven't seen the last of you. You still be around.
I'll be around.
And on that note, thank you all for guesting Mayor Liz Gamache. Thanks, Liz. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Dominic Cloud, the St. Albans City Manager, veteran City Manager, Al Vogel, St. Albans Town Selectman, and Bruce Cheeseman, the Select Board Chairman in St. Albans Town. Thanks a lot for the time.
You're very welcome.
Town Meeting Day, annual City Meeting coming up. Don't forget. Thanks for watching. Thanks to Elizabeth and Sarah for doing all the hard work out there. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. We'll see you for the next St. Albans Today show one night after Town Meeting Day. That would be Wednesday, March 7th. See ya. Thanks.